Coming up next on Two Cops, One Donut.
And he said, he goes, he goes, you guys are coming in here and, and trying to help us. He said, but the fact is that, how did the United States, how did you guys gain your independence and become free? And I said, well, we had a Revolutionary War. And he said, well, he goes, you built your country from the ground up. The reality of it is that, we're trying to do this from the opposite. We're doing it from the top down. We created a government and then hope that government can create a country. And I was like, you're right. He said, a real country, the real foundation is built from the ground up. And so we have to do that, the right way. And he said, it's just, we have too many foreign fighters in other countries and Iran and everybody else trying to do that for them.
All right, welcome back. Two Cops, One Donut. I'm your host, Eric Levine. And today I have got me a Florida House of Representatives with me, Mike Giallombardo, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I just realized that I spelled House of Representatives or Florida House of Representatives. I forgot the E. Let me fix that so the whole episode doesn't look dumb. There we go. And I'm going to flip us around here, Mike. Look at that. Technology for the win.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we were having some technology issues trying to get this thing going, lighting issues. Your camera's actually really good when the light's hitting.
Oh, well, listen, you got a better background than I do. I got like wires and we're still we've been in the house a year and we feel like we're still unpacking. So
yeah, it's that military lifestyle, baby. You don't really start to unpack until you've been someplace about 5 years.
That's right. You see my garage; it's just still packed with
just
stuff.
Tons of boxes.
Yeah, we still have boxes and yeah. So
although
we got hit by the hurricane.
That's what I was going to ask.
And then we had to readjust everything, and so then I had to go through the boxes to find, the flashlights and stuff like that. We're not unpacked yet. So
any flooding issues over by you, or you guys do
no?
Okay?
We did have flooding south of me, so like the south end of my district, probably a couple of miles in to the city limits of Cape Coral. We had probably like 3 feet of water all the way 2 miles in, so probably 5-6 feet of water in some parts, and some parts on the islands were at anywhere from 12 to 16 feet of water. So it was pretty significant flooding event. It was a little eerie because they showed some of the marinas and all the boats were sitting on the bottom of the marina, and you're like, oh, that's not going to be good. That water's going somewhere.
Dang.
So yeah, never seen that before. So
really,
yeah. No, normally we hear it all the time. Oh, surge. It never happens. And so, they were saying it and it happened.
Yeah.
So,
I remember watching some of the videos from those surges where it shows it's like a downtown camera look and they show the time lapse and the water was like at the base of a telephone pole. And the next thing you know, it's over top of the telephone pole.
Yeah, that was Fort Myers Beach. I remember seeing
insane.
that. I mean, literally buildings just picked up and moved.
Yeah.
A lot of those buildings were older, but I mean, they just picked up and went. I mean, so we're rebuilding. We kind of came out of it faster than I think, we would have been years back. So
yeah,
I think we're getting faster and faster and faster on trying to get things back to at least to normal, right? It's still going to take a while for normal, especially the beaches and some of the islands, but we're working towards that. So
God, I love Florida. I got family in Clearwater, family close to Destin. I can't remember the name of the city. It's a military town. But it's not worth the risk for me. I'm too scared of the.
You guys have hurricanes in Texas too.
Yeah, but Texas is so big. It takes like 16 hours to drive across. So where those hurricanes are, we get a light rain by the time it gets to where I'm at.
Well, but where you're at, you get all the tornadoes.
Yes, those also scare me. But you guys get tornadoes and hurricanes. So I got to take the lesser of the two evils. But yeah, I love Florida, man. I've had a good time out there. I really like St. Augustine. Is that what it's called?
St. Augustine. Oh man, it's a
Yeah,
nice area.
yeah. That was real pretty. I just like. I'm a history buff. I like the old school, learning all the stuff, and they've got museums and educational things all around. I like hearing about the naval attacks and stuff,
Oh
and
yeah.
them showing the fortresses and whatnot. I think that's really cool, and it's
Yeah.
amazing how much that stuff's been preserved, considering it's
We,
getting beat down by salt air all the time.
yeah, and we have a lot of like we just generally have a lot of military installations, a lot of combatant commands. We have Central Command, we have SOCOM, CENTCOM, we have we have Pensacola, um, Lackland Air Base. We have you know
Yep.
Dill and Tampa. So we have a lot of different of those entities, and then we have the history, space. We have the SpaceX, or
Oh
not
yeah, yeah.
SpaceX, but Space Florida we launched from here.
Yep.
But yeah, we got a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So
It's cool. It's an awesome state, man. It's probably why it's the that's I think it's the number one place where people are moving to right now. I think it's Florida's number
we
one. I think
stayed open, man. We're free.
yeah, I think Texas is number two. But let's get into it, sir. You've obviously there's a trend of the people that I have on my show. I always try to get people that either have a life of service or come from a background of having disservice from whether it be police or the system or whatever. So I try to get both sides of the house when it comes to that to keep it even keel. You chose the path of a life of service through military, through politics and stuff like that. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What'd you do? How did you get into that life?
So I grew up, for the most part, in the city where I represent, the area that I represent, Cape Coral. I was born in Wisconsin, but I don't really remember it. But so I lived in Florida most of my life, most of elementary school, all the way through high school. Even I went to Florida Atlantic University for college. Um, and I always just decided my dad served in the Army, my uncle served in the Army, my grandfather served in the Air Force. At the time, it was actually the Army Air Guard, or the Army Air Corps.
Core. Yep.
But yeah, so I've always just gravitated towards that. So I already knew when I was graduating from college that I'm like probably going to go in the military. So I joined in 2007, and during the surge, as soon as I enlisted, I went to training and then got sent straight to Iraq. So did some time out there, and then came back. I met my wife before that. So I tell everybody, my wife and I, so we met, got engaged, and got married within like 7 months, 8 months.
Oh dang.
And yeah, yeah. We've been together. We've been together for 13 years. And the first like 3 or 4 years of our marriage, though, I was gone with the military. So she stayed here in Florida, and then I ended up getting out, taking a break in service, and then going back in the National Guard. So today I'm still in. I'm a CW2 in the Florida National Guard. So I do my 1 week in a month now, 2 weeks a year.
Okay, so when you first decided to do military, you said you had, your uncles and stuff were military. Was that the influence? What was the draw?
I don't know. It was just something that I wanted to do, something that I knew that I wanted to do, and you know, like I said, my dad served. It was kind of proud of my country, love my country.
Yeah.
It was just something that we all did. My uncle served in Vietnam, the 173rd Airborne. My dad served in Korea, but not during the Korean War. After that, that's how he met my mom. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so I'm half Korean.
I've had this discussion several times on here, and I think there's a common theme when we have family members, because I had I had family in the military. I had police in my family. I had firefighters. The thing that I noticed, and I think subconsciously is a reason why I joined um, and chose the path that I chose, is because when we'd have family reunions or anything like that, who did everybody flock around during family reunions? It was always the same guys or girls. It's the
Yeah.
cops, the ambulance, the military guys. That every time, like they held a higher reverence in the family by proxy of what they do for a living or what they have done through service. And I guess I never realized that until having these types of discussions. Like that was a major
Yeah.
reason.
Well,
I
I didn't even realize that until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, like I wanted that I wanted my family to respect me or earn their respect the same way that I saw through everybody that flocks around during these family get-togethers. And it was that. It was always their service because everybody wants the stories. They want, oh my God, what'd you do while you were there? What, like, what'd you do at the fire? What happened over here? This just, everybody wants to know about that stuff. And I guess that was the draw. And that's probably why we've had police, firefighter, military television shows since the dawn of television. Like they don't go away.
Yep.
Like the topic never gets boring, even though it's really the same old shit, just rewritten. We just don't get tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, the same leadership styles, the same basic scenarios happen. They just happen nowadays with different technology,
Yep.
and just but it's very similar. Like the camaraderie that you have in the military,
Yeah.
it's the same camaraderie that was in existence, World War II when all the way back to the beginning. Still that same camaraderie where, and it just doesn't go away. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what kept me around, to be honest. Because I've kind of gotten out. I've had all the opportunities, and
So when
I
you
keep
first got
sticking
in,
around.
what was your job? Like what did you sign up to be?
So I was with Fourth Infantry Division out of Colorado Springs. So I got stationed there right away. Went off to NTC over in California, and then just almost immediately got sent over to Iraq. And so I did interrogations, and then like key leader engagements, things like that for the infantry unit. So I was attached to an infantry regiment, and we'd go out on patrols, we'd go do raids, we'd go do all that stuff, and I was more on the interrogation side. So
So did you have to know how to speak another language?
they want you to, and you go to school for it. The fact is that you'll never, unless you're 100% fluent, unless you've lived it, unless you're never going to speak a native language unless you're really from there. I mean, they're always going to know, like, it's very difficult, especially Arabic, some of those languages. And they have their own slang. Every area has its own dialect,
Right.
so it's very difficult to learn that. But I did learn some Arabic before I went,
Yeah.
and and some Spanish and things like that. But for my job, but you'll never be fluent. You always have to have an interpreter.
So
So I worked with a lot of interpreters.
what was the training like? Like, you walk into a room with somebody sitting in a chair and just start
It's not like
practicing what how did it work?
yeah. I mean, yeah, you have conversations. You learn about mannerisms, body language, things like that. But yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's no different. You're a sergeant, and you're a police officer, so you've done them. So it's no different than any other interview. It's the same principle. We have rules.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
So while you were over there, people are gonna want to know, like, were you guys using like, the secret serums and stuff like that, injecting people? I try to tell people like
That's that's all movie
that's
stuff.
movie stuff.
That's
Yeah.
not, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
The best actually time that I had, the best part of my job was I got to meet a lot of like key leaders and military commanders, and we get to talk about you know the history of where they're at and what they need help with, and that was the most interesting part because you get to meet with religious leaders to military commanders,
Yeah.
and you get to build coalitions and you work with them and find out what their goals are, and, and you help bridge that gap a little bit. And that was probably the best part of my job, is being able to meet with all those folks and break bread with them a lot, because they do always do it around a meal.
Yeah.
So that was the best part about it.
So winning the hearts and minds type idea, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's yeah, and you build strategy and you kind of communicate back to, because you're in the military, you always have commander's intent, right? What your command is looking for, and then they have a commander's intent, and it all has to line up, and everybody has the same mission, same goal. So I'm just a piece, right? When you're over there and you're meeting with these religious leaders or you're meeting with military commanders, your goal is to do X in this community and figure out how you can bridge that gap and work with them and create a relationship. So when you go on a raid, or you go and have to detain somebody, they're right there with you. So building that is it's not as easy as one would think, because it's a lot of trust.
Yeah.
You got to spend a lot of time, especially in some of those other cultures where they trust nobody. I mean, they come off the Iran-Iraq war. They've had the British there. They've had, they've been at war for, thousands of years, and and so they just don't trust anybody outside. So being able to work with them, build that trust, and then being able to kind of execute on those relationships.
If you're law enforcement, stop and listen to me right now. If you're a police department that does not have an LPR system, Insight is offering the first 10 agencies, that means one agency apiece, gets one camera for free. You have to tell them that Two Cops, One Donut sent you. You heard me right. If you're a police agency that does not have an LPR system yet, or does have an LPR system, and you're not happy with the product you have, Insight is offering you a free camera. No strings attached, and they will install it. I have 10 to give out. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you, or reach out to me and I will get you in contact. If you're a business owner or an HOA, please stop and listen to me right now. If you're just listening to the audio, do yourself a favor and watch the YouTube version of this episode to get a visual of what I'm about to tell you. I want to tell you guys about Insight LPR. It's a license plate reader. If your agency, community, or business is looking to invest in LPR to help solve and deter crime or to make your community safer, Insight LPR has my vote of confidence. I've met with their team. They know their LPRs, guys. They're the real deal. They bring over 75 years of collective experience to building LPR cameras and the software that supports communities across the country. The other thing I really like about this team is how much they listen to law enforcement. They understand the importance of working together with law enforcement and getting their input as they build and innovate products and their service to match the needs of law enforcement. In other words, when I complain or have suggestions to make their damn camera better, they actually do it. The Insight LPR team is extremely passionate and takes pride in their product development, which makes their cameras some of the most durable cameras in the market. For the gear nerds out there, what that means is this stuff's made of military grade aluminum and is nitrogen purged, whatever that means. This design makes the cameras rugged and able to withstand harsh weather elements. Here's the big selling point for me. Their nighttime scan accuracy is higher than most of the leading competitors. In my opinion, this is what sets them apart. As we know, the majority of crimes occur at night, so it's critical to have high scan accuracy at night. Insight's cameras check the box with the nighttime plate read accuracy greater than 96%. 96%, guys. That's pretty freaking high. If your community is looking to invest in LPR technology, reach out to one of their experts today, or reach out to me. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you.
It was the best part. It was the most challenging too. I mean, interrogation, you detain somebody from sticking a bomb in the ground, and they're the low guy on the totem pole most of the time, right? They're not.
Yeah. It's exactly like dope deals. It really is. When you look at the structure of how dope is dealt and all that stuff, you're usually chipping away at the bottom rung, and then that leads you to the next high guy, and then that leads you to eventually you get your way up if you're going at it from the angle that you did.
Yeah.
Versus being undercover and trying to infiltrate. That's different.
That's a whole different game.
Yeah, it's a different game. But from what we're talking about, you get this. Now you got to try to flip them. Try to see if you can get that kid or whoever it was burying the bomb to work for you, and then you got to.
And most of the time, they don't know anything other
Yeah.
than what they're doing, right?
Yes.
They were
Yep.
paid or they were whatever to do this, and they
Yeah.
don't know where, so it's, I don't know. It's just, those interrogations were very mundane, and you know,
Yeah. But it's honestly, because I'm still a detective. Like that's my favorite part of my job is doing genuine interrogations versus doing interviews.
mhm.
I interview a witness, I interview a victim. That's fine and all. And sometimes when you're interviewing a witness or a victim, you realize that they're a part of a crime themselves, and you realize there's more to the story, and that's fun and all. But I like when I know I've got all my ducks in a row, and now it's just time to break this person down to the point that they admit what they did, whether they fully admit it, like just outright, or they admit it by proxy, or they at least put themselves in the area during the time, and I'm putting all these little facts together where I can articulate later on, well, said he was here, even though he's claiming he had nothing to do with this, and his phone shows that he was in this area during the time of the crime. Like, you start putting all these pieces together. That's fun, man.
It
I
is.
love
It
it.
is fun.
And you really learn how to start being a wordsmith. You learn how to recognize an approach isn't working when you're like, let me try this way. Let me come in and be like, Mad Dog Mattis at first. Let me try to just scare him into admitting, and then, well, it ain't working. All right, let me be the nice cop now. Let me see if that
You
works.
also
So
learn a lot about people, right? You learn a lot about
yeah,
what people are really thinking, um, and
yeah.
what makes somebody tick. So no,
So this show is about bridging gaps with the community and stuff like that. I think your perspective on learning how to go into a completely different country, culture, and learning how to break down the barriers of language, cultural differences, and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't have personal experience over there. Lots of pre-training if I were to get deployed, um, but it never happened. From my understanding, they're based on kind of that old school. There's an elder,
oh yeah,
yeah. So and they, like you said, they actually legitimately break bread and have tea while you guys discuss with all the prominent community leaders. Is that how it starts out?
yeah. I mean, if you're going on patrol and you come across a city or a small village, you go meet with either some of them are like cities like we would have here. They have a mayor or governor. They have a governor or whatever they have. You meet with them, or if it's a smaller village, then you meet with the village elder or their imam. In Iraq's case, right, their religious leader, and they usually have like a tea room or like chai room, and you
Yeah,
sit in there and you have a conversation with them and you talk to them about you know the area, and sometimes they're part of the problem, sometimes they're part of the solution, right? And
how
if they're
did you
part of
get
the
that
problem,
conversation started? How did you, like, are you just knocking on doors? Like, how, I'm just curious how that
yeah, a
began.
lot of times it's just knocking on doors. You go into an area, and a lot of times they'll have little like areas set up where you can like little bazaars, things like that, and you just spend a little capital in their village. You spend a little bit of money and buying some things, maybe buy food or something like that, and that starts kind of bridging that gap. Spend money in their community,
Yeah.
um, and start talking to the members of the community. Usually, if you start talking to somebody and um, they don't really say a whole lot until the elder comes out and has the first conversation. So,
Okay. So
yeah,
when you're having the serious talks and you're trying to tell them, like, look, this is what we're trying to do. Here's the problems and stuff like that, and we're trying to help with that. So that's you trying to show them your goal, your mission, and build that trust. What were their concerns? Like the ones that weren't the bad guy, that were legitimately trying
it's
to
always
help.
security, roads. I mean, like if you think about it here, like in the United States on the local level, where people are like, "Oh man, we got potholes in our roads. We got." I mean, they're thinking the same thing. It's just they're like, "Our roads are all mud." We want our roads
Oh,
built. It's
okay. So
it's
they were
really
looking for like structural improvement
a lot of them
in city
schools.
growth.
Oh yeah, they want stuff like
Okay.
that, and that's not really my lane, but we can always help. meet because we do have a civil affairs, folks that help. But what people say like, oh, you're used to be an interrogator, you must be really good at talking. I'm better at listening, and that's what people don't like realize is that it's just less talking, more listening.
Yeah.
Because you sit there and talk forever, sound maybe good or sound very smooth, but at the end of the day, if you're the only one talking, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just being able to listen
Yeah.
to them, most people just want to be listened to. Like they just
Yep.
want somebody to hear them. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's what when we would do over there. We would sit down, and I can't promise anything because I'm not, I don't have fiduciary authority over tons of money to write a check. Hey, here you go, go build a road. But we can at least get them to the right person and help them out and talk to them about the security concerns and if they can help us make sure that the bad guys are not in the area, then that's what we do.
Yeah. Now, do you have any like success stories or anything like that that you can remember from over there, or did you
Well,
not get to do the follow through as
I
much as
mean,
you'd like?
you do. It's always a long game. I was over there for about a year. I mean, it ends up being a long game, and especially in that world because you know you know this, you're in the military. You're on deployment cycles. So you come in, in some cases, somebody else has already developed a relationship, and then you rip out with another infantry unit. And that infantry unit, you're literally going side by side, riding along on missions with them, and they're introducing you to some of the village elders. Sometimes the relationships weren't good, and you got to kind of mend them and figure out how to or some of them were like key relationships that they just never developed. So you got to develop new ones.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they were just amazing, and it's hard for you to replicate what they were doing because they did such a great job. And we had that case with one of the SF units that we were working with.
You got
They
to be specific because I'm SF, but I'm not. I'm
Yeah,
not that
no, like
SF.
one of the Green Beret units. They
Not security forces. Sorry,
no, no,
boys.
no, 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 no. Special forces.
Eddie's.
So yeah, they did a great job at just building some of the relationships, and we'd come in and because they have a little bit more leeway in being able to provide support, especially since civil affairs fell underneath special operations. Um, it was just much easier for them to broker that, but we were still able to kind of maintain the relationships, but no, it was good. I mean, that was like I said, that I learned the most. I used to sit down with a Iraqi general, and he would just tell me, he would say, um, he goes, we see this all the time. You guys are going to come here and then leave, and then we're going to have then the enemy's going to try to take a stronghold, and then you're going to have to come back. And it was like, and it when we had to go back because of ISIS and um, because of the situation in Iraq was just getting worse. I was like, man, was he right? I mean,
Yeah.
he said we'll be at war for a long time, and it's gonna really, it's not gonna end anytime soon. Um, and I remember, and it's not really a success story, but I remember being in there, and there was a couple of guys from the State Department that came in just to introduce themselves, and they were talking with them, and I sat back and just sat there and listened, and I mean, they had to have been younger than me. I mean, they looked really young, and they were talking to him about the history of Iraq and all this stuff, and he just said, "Get out." He's like, "You're telling me about my history. You're like 25 years old. You just
Yeah.
got out
What
of college."
life experience do you have? Yeah.
Exactly. This is your first job. Congratulations, you passed the test. You know,
Yeah.
um, and then he looked at me and I said, "Hey, listen, I don't have any authority over other folks coming in." And he said, "Well," and he said, he goes, he goes, "You guys are coming in here and and trying to help us." He said, "But the fact is that." How did the United States, how did you guys gain your independence and become free? And I said, well, we had a Revolutionary War. And he said, well, he goes, you built your country from the ground up. The reality of it is that, you know, you we're trying to do this from the opposite. We're doing it from the top down. We created a government and then hope that that government can create a country. And I was like, you're right. He said a
Yeah.
real country, the real foundation is built from the ground up, and so we have to do that, the right way. And he said it's just we have too many foreign fighters in other countries and Iran and everybody else trying to do that for them. He says we have to do it for ourselves. You know, most Iraq. He said most Iraqis just want to provide for their families, no different than most people in the states. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting and um, a perspective that most people don't get.
Yeah.
But
And
and I was
that's
able to gain that. And he's been around for a long time. He was
yeah. And that
significantly older than I was.
that's something to point out. It's a good segue, I guess, or transitional thing that transfers over to police. It transfers over to anything. When you think about, you've got a rookie cop that's 21 years old. Let's say he's at the minimum age of being a cop everywhere. I don't think anybody hires cops at 18 anymore. That
No, I
used to
don't,
be a thing,
I don't think so.
but yeah, but I don't think that's a thing anymore. But anyway, let's say you are 21 and you're green as green gets. You got zero life experience. Now you're showing up to a domestic of, let's say a 40-year-old couple. That's middle of the row. We're not even talking, old age, but as I'm turning 40 in February. Um
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. And you're expecting this 21-year-old to have some sort of ability to resonate with you on talking to you about solving your life problems in the 15 minutes that he's been there and met you.
Yeah,
Like, how do you gain? That's a hard thing to do. And think about those two poor state kids that that came out there, and
yeah,
they get
they're probably
thrown
like
in.
25 or
Yeah,
something like that, and they were just,
and I bet they thought that they could solve the world's issues at that
oh
time.
yeah, oh yeah, they're
You know,
probably
you know,
ambitious, and they were like, we're gonna come in and you know,
I and I
tell
would
you that
love
how
I
to
would
kill
love
this
to do
person.
your job now. I would love to come in with my life experience now and my ability that I've learned how to talk to people, how to mediate um, between conflict. Because in 18 years, 17, 18 years of police experience, I have really learned a lot of what not to say, what not to do,
Uh,
how to mediate so much better. If I could take the skill set that I had now and give it to me when I was 21, holy shit, it would have been amazing. But
yeah, no,
the,
everything
the
happens for a reason. Because I'll tell you, when I before going over there, I didn't go in the military at 18. I went to college first, but I you transition and you learn all that, and then it brings me to what I do now, and you're like I always tell people less is more, right? Sometimes you
yeah,
just sit back and listen, and then make a decision. On some people, far too many people either try to talk too fast or talk too much, or and now it's the keyboard, right? We have keyboard warriors that are sitting there
yeah,
online all day thinking that they know everything, and it's they just stop,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting though that we, and this is still for the military. We're sending kids over, and it's no slam on. I mean, I know they're adults technically, but as far as experience goes, they're very inexperienced with life in general.
hmm
Some, there's always outliers, but and you're having them talk to elders, that have grown up in a war torn country their entire existence, their parents' existence, and it's generational.
yeah,
And now it's kind of insulting when you send a
it
kid
is.
over.
And that's how he took it. He was like, oh, so I'm not good enough to have somebody much higher up to have a conversation with me. And I
Right.
was like, well, hey, wait about me. I'm still pretty young. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
it's like, it's more of you're, we're talking more militarily stuff. So it was a little bit different, but he's like, these kids are coming in here to try to tell me on how to get rid of the insurgency and the strategy, when he goes, they've been reading it in books, and
Yeah.
they've been reading what we've been doing in books, our history in books. They don't know anything about. And so that
Yeah.
becomes the, and I think, and I don't know if this is a common practice within like the State Department, but usually if you're brand new coming in as a foreign officer or whatever, you get those type of posts, right? Not you're not going to go to the Vatican right away. You're not.
Right.
They're gonna send you to like a country that has maybe less economic value or
Yeah.
whatever. So I don't know if that's common practice where you get those type of posts first, but it
Yeah.
appeared that way in this situation. I don't know. I didn't know who those two were. Never seen them in my life. But they introduced themselves as employees of the State Department, and they were gonna, and I'm just sitting off in the corner, because I'm still a, young soldier.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just saw him kick him out. It's like, leave.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine you as I've got to know you personally. You're a problem solver. Like that's part of your drive. When you were doing this, at any time, did you step back and go, okay, I see how we're doing this, and it's flawed. One, because we're trying to talk to elders, and in a cultural setting where respect is shown and given by talking to these higher level people, older people, and here we keep sending basically kind of an insulting message. Did you up channel that and tell them like this could be a better approach if we had, I'm not saying send a general in there by any means, but somebody with
Yeah.
longer military experience, older look, any of that? Were you guys up channeling that, and was the military
Absolutely.
adjusting?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we would, we had these mid teams, and I remember some of the situations that we've had that you just they want to speak to somebody who has a little bit more, brass on them, right? A little bit
Yeah.
more gray hairs, and so then I would then listen. I'm not a. You can't be proud, right? You have mission first. So in some cases, I would just be I'm like, I'm going to be this guy's note taker, and you're.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
and the guy and the person with brass may not always know all the questions to ask, but we will, we would help them. Like, hey, we want to find out these type of things, we want to see if he can help us with X mission. Then we would go and, it was just you'd be the note taker for a general, like you just,
Yeah.
or a major or somebody, right?
Yeah.
And then let them have the communication, because they want to talk to, in those cultures. Why do you think in Afghanistan so many folks had beards, and you see it all over TV, and like they had beards, right? Because that showed a sign of maturity, and
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
just trying to, kind of
Not going over there
replicate.
baby
Yeah,
faced.
you're trying to build rapport with them, and you're not going to build rapport with a nice clean baby face, shaved, going into a village elder home or wherever his village, and trying to have a conversation with them. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. I like discussing. I mean, because it transfers over here. Like I go into a community, low socioeconomical standing, high crime area, and the discussions don't start much different. You go to a community leader area, you ask them what the issues are that they're having, what their concerns are, and you listen. Ask them what their issues are with the police. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same road. Just slightly different cultural norms and whatnot, but that's the formula. You go in there and it works, especially when you speak the same language and you can resonate with the same background and stuff like that. I win a lot of people over in my area just by telling them I'm from Flint. They're like, Flint, Michigan, like the water, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, damn, like
Water.
as bad as it is where they're at, they're like, they feel bad for me. But it gives me
I feel
that
bad
instant
for you.
respect. Yeah. So I tell them that, and instantly hit it off, and then the real conversations can start from there because they know I'm coming from a place that's got the same issues as that they're going to discuss, and we have that common ground. But I just like hearing you talk about you went to a completely foreign country, didn't speak the language, but you're able to break down the issues, communicate effectively, and get some sort of common ground and progress, and that is what it's all about. And
So
it doesn't
there's a
like
couple of principles that I've learned. I think that I think are genuinely correct. That most cultures or most countries or wherever you go, one they love to hear somebody listen, right? They want somebody to listen to them, no matter what. And I think the second thing is that they like people like them, right? So if you
yeah,
can find rapport or some sort of common ground with anybody, and then listen, I mean, you're already halfway there. And that's just how it has to. I mean, that doesn't just translate into the military or law enforcement. That's in everything you do. Like I used to sell copy machines. Um, I used to go building to building in
yeah,
Miami and sold copy machines. And I don't. In some of the areas of Miami, most of the people spoke Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. So, you go in there and you have a card and you're like, I got a brochure, and you're trying to sell to somebody that doesn't speak,
language
the
barrier. Yeah,
language at all, doesn't speak the same language. You can't speak with, you don't understand them, or you maybe understand a couple of words here and there. You have to figure out a way to build rapport. And
yeah.
so it's no different.
Okay,
Yeah, it's every job, politics, um,
yeah.
software
Now,
sales. That's all the same.
so now while you were over there, you obviously you were basically being a community, what we would call a neighborhood patrol officer, where we're at. Like you're trying to be that liaison between the military and the community that you are your missions at. So
Hmm.
and figuring out what their problems are, what they're doing well, what they're doing bad, what they need help with, all that stuff. So I get that side of the house. Now the other side of the house that I'm kind of interested in is when you did get bad guys.
Hmm.
Now, is it you're posted up near a village or whatever, you guys you do your you go out to them, and then somehow a bad guy gets caught by patrol or something and brings them to you? How did that work for you?
I mean, we would go on just no different than any other type of raid, and we'd go on raids after certain
Okay.
individuals. Yeah, it wouldn't. Normally, when we do patrols, it's either a presence patrol or something, just to, and that's when we start. That's when we have the key leader engagements. But we did do raids quite often.
Okay. So
Um,
you would be attached to units.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, were you always attached to like your local
infantry unit. Yeah.
infantry unit? Okay, you weren't attached to like any of the real SF and all that stuff when they would go knock down doors.
No, not really.
Okay, and in that, so you get, let's say you get a target that you're looking for or whatever. How does that how does that start out for you? How does the whole process start?
You know what? It's really no different function than just asking questions like you would do when you guys go and do raid out somebody's home. You go in and you get the subject or the detainee,
Yeah,
um, and you just ask them direct questions. At that
yeah,
point, you're it's not it's we call it tactical questioning, and it's just something
mm-hmm.
that anybody can really do. um, we're just a little bit more. I'm just a little bit more. I'm in an infantry unit. I'm just a little bit more trained on that side of it. So,
Gotcha.
yep. So we would just
Yeah,
do basic tactical questioning. Yeah.
yeah. So you're a rifleman with a little bit of a nerd side to you, basically.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it.
I
That's,
like it. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So you do that. You got your service. So you did was that active duty
That was active
time?
duty. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
did active duty, and you transition back home. What were years were this?
2010 through 2012. So I spent it's like 3 years, 3 years active, had a break, got out. Uh, then I went to the Guard.
Okay.
Probably about a year and a half after. I was with 20th Special Forces Group for about a year, and then I switched to just a unit, a linguist unit. So
Okay.
yeah,
And
now
were you doing the same thing for both or?
yeah, same. I'm same job title. Same job title, but I was just with the local Florida National Guard unit, and then I switched over to just a linguist unit in
Okay.
Miami. Yeah,
Okay. So you do that, and are you're a reservist, so you're working now. You're working back in the States,
yeah. I
correct?
mean, we don't really. I mean, we have 1 week in a month, 2 weeks here. It's no different than the reserves. We do
Right.
training. Um, we'll have to go and meet all the requirements that the regular
Yeah.
army does, but we're just on the guard level. We get activated for all the storms, and then like the pandemic, we got activated.
All humanitarian missions
Yeah,
and
like
stuff like that.
state missions. Yeah, we have like state active duty status where it's completely separate from the federal side. But we'll do like we set up like the first sites in Florida for testing for when COVID kind of kicked off. We did that, and then we all the hurricanes. We manage all like we are like the liaison at all the emergency operation centers, and we go to like these point of distribution sites, and just kind of what you see on TV, with the National
Yeah.
Guard when it comes to um, any type of natural disaster or disaster activation. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. So after that, you where were you? Where'd you start working once you transitioned out of that? Did you go right into the house or?
No, 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 no. I've worked healthcare. I worked for DHS. I was part of a secure flight program with DHS. Worked in healthcare for a while. I was working when I got out though. Initially, I had um I had a hard time getting a job because I got out and the recession was still kind of happening. So in the military, you're kind of insulated um, from anything that happens outside because unless somebody tells you or talks to you about it, because you're overseas, you're on a military installation, especially during wartime, everything is business as usual. Nothing changes. You're still getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
Even the communities around these bases do very well, regardless of recession or not. So um, when I got back, my wife did an amazing job of not trying to bog me down with any recession issues or anything things that are happening stateside. 'Cause she didn't want me to worry about it. And then when I finally got out and got home, it was like there was no jobs. I mean, I have a master's degree, a clearance, have all these things. I could not get a job. I ended up working in a factory for about a year, um, putting together cardboard boxes all day. Uh,
Dang.
yeah, did that for a year. That was like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2011. So did that for a year, and then I picked up the DHS gig as a contractor. Went up
Okay.
to DC, did that for a year because it was a 1 year contract, and then came back home, and yeah, so
Dang. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. It.
now I own my software company.
Okay.
Which
So
Iris is
how the hell do you go from healthcare contract work to I'm gonna design and help with software?
Oh man, so there's a lot that goes into it. So I got out, did all that, got back, got myself involved in politics just as like a volunteer type of thing, and then I started Total Intelligence Group, which is a company that I still own, and we do a lot of like integrations and we did some cyber stuff for a long time, but not a long time, for a couple of years. We did some investigation stuff, and then we started working with agencies and helping them build their crime centers. Well, I wouldn't say helping build. There's a couple of aspects to building, right? There's the physical stuff, and then there's the back end stuff. And just based on what we knew in the military and the talks, the tactical operations centers, we would build like connections between programs on the back end. And quite honestly, that's where we figured out not all software programs don't want to talk to each other.
Right.
Um, and so, and not only they don't want to talk to each other, but their data is so different and the structure of their data that it's hard to get them to talk to each other. So we were doing that. We were working with a program called Analyst Notebook, which is a great program. I2 is a great tool. The issue I would say with that is that you have to be trained on it. There's a lot of training that goes into it. It's a very detailed product. And in the military, our analysts will go through months of training in I2 or Palantir. And in law enforcement, you just don't have that. So we were, working on stuff with agencies on that front and helping them build connectors from like LexisNexis and different tools to the back end of I2. And so we were doing all that and helping them design their workflow. And then we came up with Iris. We're like, how are you processing all this? They're like, oh, email, Excel spreadsheets. We use SharePoint, all these different things. And we're like, which ones are compliant? Like, I don't think any of those are really, especially if you're passing over like 28 CFR data or any, CGI stuff. And so they're like, well, we don't quite know. So we help them we help some of the agencies build a flow of how the detective or the investigator can submit a request through a government cloud, CGIS portal, that the analyst can, or the analyst or whoever's fulfilling the request, can produce a product and disseminate it right back out to everything while it's being tracked and meets all the auditing requirements. So we kind of took what we learned in the military. My business partner Tim, he's kind of the brains behind a lot of it, and because he was the analyst. So my business partner is the guy that I served in Iraq with.
Yeah.
And so the relationship was just amazing. He would come out when we were overseas, and so he's the guy behind the scenes. So he sees the big picture. I just see my little tunnel, right? I'm going on patrol, and he would be like, hey, he'd call me out. Hey, meet me outside. I'd meet him outside. He would say, um, uh, your screen just changed.
Yeah. I got that's what we're going to.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
There you
so
go.
we would literally take. Um, he would tell me to meet him outside, and I'd go out there and he'd be like, "Hey, don't take this route. There's gonna be an ID on this road. So then he would tell me all this, and I'd be like, "Oh man, I appreciate it." So we developed that relationship, that rapport. I guess you definitely call that rapport. Um, and so now he all the issues that he had when he was trying to process and trying to fulfill requests and all that. So that's kind of where we developed Iris.
Yeah. That's how we met.
Yeah.
Kind of through the real time crime center stuff.
Yep.
And this is a big issue right now because real time crime centers it's in its infancy. It's new. It's a new concept. For those wondering what I'm talking about, like, just picture that typical European James Bond movie style thing where you see all these cameras around in the city and they're like tracking stuff and doing all that. That's kind of what a real time crime center is. A little with constitutional protections, let's put it that way. Being here in the States, so essentially you'll get your city to set up cameras and other information tracking things that would be in a public place, at least in Texas. That's how we do it. If it's in a public area, and Joe Blow citizen would have a right to film, record, do anything, so do the police. So we'll have cameras and whatnot set up in certain locations, and then we're running license plates, tracking for people that have warrants, and all these different things. It's a new way of policing, and one of the problems that we have is one. Let's say, just like this workflow kind of shows here, is you've got all these different avenues of information, whether it be all these PowerPoint, PDF, Teams, Microsoft Office, all of that stuff, and then social media, Facebook, all that stuff, and we put together intel sheets, bolos, be on the lookouts, whatever it is. A lot of the information that's on these things that we have is protected information. We can't just send it to each other, like he was saying, via email or whatever. It's like you have to have some sort of protection and compliance behind this. We call it CJIS. I don't even know what CJIS stands for anymore.
Criminal Justice Information Systems.
That's what it is. And it's got a lot of strict guidelines to send the type of information we're sending. So you need a software out there that's going to transfer everything under that compliance, and be a one-stop shop, so to speak. And Iris is one of those companies that does that. It's kind of interesting. It's, like I said, it's a new concept, and a lot of people are trying to get on board with these types of things and come out with stuff like this. So what's cool about Iris is, one, it's backed by two guys that are used to this type of information sharing and understanding you have to have stuff encrypted, and you can't just send whatever you want over email. So you've already got that, and then plus you guys have law enforcement working with you and for you. So that's pretty cool. I like that.
And if you think about like the reason why DHS was designed that, to be able to communicate with local, state and federal partners, to communicate information, so we don't have another 9/11. And that, quite frankly, just does not happen to the level it should. And so it's kind of like, we're in the military, there's so many, and I'm not going to ever say that the military is perfect, because it's not, but there's so many levels and layers of communication sharing that happens based on need to know, based on requirements and all that. So it's something that we were passionate about. Tim, there's a lot of stuff that Tim couldn't tell me in the military because I did not have the need to know. He saw the big picture. He just knew that we were driving down this road and there could be something that would not, an ID or whatever, an ambush would be on that road. So he'd be able to tell me that. So that the sharing was happening. And sometimes it's, it was via phone, or that there's a better way of doing it. And so more, tracked way of being able to communicate sensitive stuff. So we created that, and, we're working on that stuff. And then to the other side, I got elected my first term in 2020.
So, okay, hold on. Before we start talking about
you asked me about all my stuff, so I was just kind of going in.
Yeah, I know. Before we get into that, like, did this political idea happen because you did your year contract in DC?
Kinda. So it wasn't so much my year contract in DC. It was some of the things that were happening. My wife and I we were having our first child, and to be honest, I never thought of me getting into politics or being involved, or it was just never, I voted, but just never something that I really saw myself. I worked, and I was just going to try to provide for my family. So as we were going through the process, Obama was the president, and we were going through trying to get insurance and doing all that stuff. And I was coming into a lot of issues. So I served in the military. I had VA benefits. I was also, I had a catastrophic insurance plan. So I bought me a plan for like $80 a month. It covered for me for one visit a year for my physical. And then it was, $12,500 deductible.
Yeah.
Well, and my wife's a teacher. So we were trying to get my son insurance, and all every insurance. So I didn't realize the new law stated that every child had to be on their parents' program or a government program. So we were trying to go, and I was trying to get insurance. I'm calling all these insurance companies. Everybody's turning me down. And I'm like, man, I thought it was supposed to be easier. I guess it's not. And to add one person to my wife's plan, it's like tacking on an extra couple of $1,000 a month, which wasn't something that we could pay for at the time. And so so I finally talked to one of the ladies at one of the insurance companies. She said, "Well, the new Affordable Care Act requires every child to be on their parents' plan or a government plan." I said, "Well, I want to. Well, then what do I do?" And she's like, "Well, you don't qualify for government assistance or anything, so you're." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not asking for that." But she's like, "Well," I said, "Oh, what's the plan? Can I switch my plan?" She goes, "No, because you're considered a pre-existing condition." I said, "How so?" She's like, "Well, you're having a child." I was like, "I'm not physically having a child."
Yeah.
He's like, "No, but you're still, a parent." I'm like, so I couldn't get him on couldn't get him on the plan. And at that point, I was like, yeah, it was very frustrating. So I told my wife, I said, this is kind of BS that the government's telling me what I can't, how to provide for my family because they think they know it's better. Um, and I said, and I decided, and did not care for that. Did not think that that was right. I served in the military served overseas, and the government's telling me what's best for me and my family. So I looked at my wife. I was like, listen, I'm going to get involved. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to start getting involved. So that got me started, like kind of involved in, learning about the process, and, um, and then as my involvement grew, the seat in my district, my hometown, came up, and I knew my predecessor, Dane Eagle, and he, we have term limits in Florida, so he was terming out, and I jumped in and won my election, and then the next thing I got, I didn't have an election this year, so I didn't have an opponent, so I just roll right into the.
Scared him off.
That's right.
They're like, I won't win. I ain't going up against that guy.
Well, I hope that I do good things. So, there's no need to.
I
But
like this. I got. If you're listening to the episode, I've already shared the website for his software company, irisintelgroup.com.
and
But I also have up here his Florida House of Representatives
and
stat
just
sheet.
and just so everybody knows that in Florida we have a citizen legislature. So we're a part-time legislature. So I mean we make $29,000 a year for going up to back and forth to Tallahassee. So you got to have a full time. And the idea behind it is that you pass laws, and then we live underneath the laws that we pass. And so in Florida, I love our system. I think it's a great model. Like we're not full time. We're citizen legislators. We get no
Yeah.
pension system. We get no. It's not any get vested after 2 year one term. It doesn't work that way. We do our time. We have four in the House. We have 4 2-year terms, so 8 years total. We're done. Some folks go to the Senate. You can move to the different branches back and forth, but
Right.
you're termed out at that point, and we move on.
Oh, that's smart. I like that too. I like that
Um,
concept.
yeah, I like it. I
Um,
like term limits. I think term limits solve a lot of our problems.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But all right, let me see here. So, in your time doing that, what any life lessons you've learned as being a politician, so to speak?
uh, listen more. Again, it's not really a. What's interesting? I'm a warrant officer in the National Guard. So, in the military, I'm an
Cake
inch
eater.
wide and a mile deep. Well, as a
Yeah.
legislator, you're an inch deep and a mile wide. So you're never going to know everything.
Right.
You're never, and so it's really important that as a elected official, you surround yourself with. It's hard sometimes, but with good people to not just help you, but to guide you. And I always tell every audience when I go and speak to folks, listen, I don't know what I don't know. So if you don't tell me what's happening in a certain industry or what's happening on the ground for after the hurricane, with what's going on and any of the assistance from the agencies or FEMA, or if you don't tell me, I don't know.
Yeah.
So you know, I try to do my best to sit back and just listen, listen more, listen to people that are experts. But you also get a lot of folks that are trying to sway you to, pass a law,
Have,
pass a bill that
yeah.
favors their company or whatever. And you have to read through some of that. So I have just like a couple of like principles that I have in my head when I'm looking at stuff or I'm looking at a bill or I'm looking at when the term and I have it different from the public sector to the private sector. So on the private sector side, when the word mandate comes up, I'm very critical of that word. I don't I believe in the free market. I do not believe in um, the crazy mandates on the private sector. People have their private businesses or private property rights. I'm very critical of that word mandate. Um, and so that makes me very critical of sometimes of the public sector when local governments will create mandates or create ordinances. I know in Florida, just before elected, um, Key West tried to they created an ordinance ban sunscreen um, in Key West. Like, so we had to do we had I didn't, but my neighbor to the north, he had to do a preemption bill to just say, all right, nobody in the state can ban sunscreen. We're in Florida, we're in the Sunshine State. So,
Yeah.
so looking at that type of stuff, but I've been really focused mostly on cybersecurity. I believe a big role of government is safety and security. That is like the biggest role, in my opinion. Safety and security. So I think cyber is an area that we haven't dove into as much as that we should, or I should say the cyber domain. Um, so we have to make sure that we not only protect our physical lives but our digital personas, right? So everybody has a
Yeah.
digital persona. You know, you probably as a law enforcement officer use it to investigate a lot of people, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I tell
So
people,
yeah,
I'm I like being, the hot word these days is being transparent. Okay. I'm I tell the bad guys, we got cameras all over. Look, there's one right there. And I'll show them what it looks like because I want them to second guess when they go to do something. I want them to stop committing the crimes in that
yeah,
location. Because if they now move, now I've got justification to go get a camera put in the next location. And to the point where they're not committing crimes in my city. That's my fishbowl. I can only control my little environment. That's why I like, if I were to ever get into politics, it would be at your level because that's all I care about. I care about my area. I care about where my kids are going to grow up, what I can control. I can't really push my span of control over a nation or anything like going crazy high politics or anything like that. And I never considered politics at all until I started doing this, and then I got a lot of people asking me. Um,
well, and I think that if you look at politics has been kind of a, and I hate to put it, but there's a lot of celebrity politicians, right? That people get in it.
yeah,
You're either in it to do something or to be someone. Um,
yeah,
and so, and you can definitely see the types of people that want to just in it to be somebody.
yeah.
Um, they're 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 they starve for that attention. They starve for that dopamine when they get it. They count how many likes they have on a on
Yeah, yeah.
a on a, on
You were
a, on a
asking me how
tweet.
many viewers I had. I was like, I don't know. I got this is how many views I got.
uh,
I can tell you that. That's funny.
but they're starving for that attention. And then you have folks that you just don't ever hear about that are
Yeah.
just doing amazing work. And I know
Yep.
like we have a couple of elected officials here that always are just like quiet behind the scenes. They just do
Mhm.
amazing work, and and if you look at really, imagine what anybody can get done. Imagine what you can get done if nobody cares who gets the credit.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true. If people are so focused in on trying to get credit for something or trying to do whatever, um, they're focused. They're not going to get anything good done
Yeah.
for the most part. And it's those folks behind the scenes that are trying to make things work, trying to get things done. Um, is what it's how it's really things get moved. Um, when you spend too much time at a press conference or on the screen or whatever, it's all smoke and mirrors, right? It's all
Yeah.
everything. It's all BS. So, but that's what I like about it. Right? Just stay quiet, get the work done. The people hired me. I don't
Yeah.
own my seat. It's not my seat. It's not my. It's the budget that we approve is not my money. It's not my company's money. It's the people's money. Um,
Yeah.
the desk that I have is not mine. And at the end of the day, right, when I turn out, I can hold a sign on the side of the road and say, I was a state representative or I was a chair of a committee, and nobody is really going to care. So, just get the good work done while you're in and move on. And and that's kind of where I try to come from. They hired me to represent them and to vote on behalf of what the interest of our community is.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
gonna
when you
go do
keep
that.
that perspective, man, it's so fucking humbling, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean it to try to sound like I'm over, but it's just true. So, and
Yeah.
and my wife, we talk about it sometimes, and you know, when you're up in you're in politics and you're whatever, whether you're a council or a mayor or a state representative or a senator, right? People, up in Washington or Tallahassee or anywhere, they're always like, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I get home, my wife's like, hey, go take the trash out, clean up the dog shit. So you have a real life. You have a real, we're regular people. So you
Yeah.
got to brought
Now,
it back down to that level.
with that, real quick, I just wanted to give a shout out to your coworker, your co-owner, Tim. Yeah.
Him and his
I got him
mullet.
I got him pulled up right here. So if you're listening to the podcast, I tend to do this to Tim. I like to give him shout outs. So
Yeah,
uh I just wanted to give him a shout out real quick. But now that we got that up there, you can let him know we gave him a shout out.
I definitely will.
Yeah, but now you being in the house, doing what you're doing, most politicians have a project or something that they are super passionate about, something that they are going to bat for, like it's their baby. Do you have one of those right now, or have you
So
had several?
yeah, so technology has been kind of the area that I'm trying to help the state advance in, and mostly it's cybersecurity. So I am now the newly chair of energy communications and cybersecurity for the Florida House. So it's a subcommittee and through commerce, and I think it's really important. I mean,
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Impact Tactical. Impact is a tactical outfitter for the men and women of our military, police, fire departments, and other public safety around the country. Impact's core beliefs is that fearless men and women protect our freedom and safety should have access to the best tactical performance apparel, equipment, and tools on the market, and they shouldn't have to go broke to get it. I've used Impact for about 11 years, and I can attest that they do live up to their core values. So you get a personal recommendation from me. You can find them at impacttactical.com. That's MPAK tactical.com. And be sure to tell them that 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you.
I've talked to insurance companies and they're paying out billions of dollars a year on ransomware. I mean, we are just really exposed more than we should be at all levels, private sector through government, on cyber attacks. We got to work on a path to be able to minimize that risk. And so the last couple of years, we've ran cybersecurity packages for helping training, so expand training, and most of it's for local government. Again, kind of going back to that principle where I don't believe in mandating private sector companies. Um,
Right.
any of that type of I'm not going to tell them that they have to do buy a cyber policy. I don't believe in like the mandates. I'm very critical of. But as far as government goes, you're protecting taxpayer dollars, data on all the, people that you have in your systems. We got to meet a standard. So we got
Yeah.
standards, training. Um, we're not going to pay ransomware in Florida. So governments are prohibited from paying ransomware in Florida.
So
Uh,
explain what ransomware is for people that are, maybe it's their first time ever hearing it.
so I'll paint you a scenario. We had an organization in Florida that were, and just to be 100% honest, most of them happen on-prem stuff. So anything that's, if you have a bunch of on-prem servers and you have an IT director saying, "Hey, we're never going to get breached," that's not true, right? It's you're actually more vulnerable with all your on-prem stuff. So this organization had been compromised months before it even happened. They infected the system with malware. They created administrative accounts and all of their stuff and all of their programs and their solutions, and they ended up triggering this ransomware, which locks all your stuff up so nobody can access it. It's pretty much shuts it down um, until you pay the ransom, and then they give you a key to open it all up. So, and most of these ransomware hackers come out of Russia, China, Eastern Europe in general, Iran, North Korea. So they lock your system up, demand a ransom, a million, 40 million, I've heard,
Damn.
600,000. We've had cities get locked up, and then they stay quiet about it. They don't ask for help. They just kind of hope it goes away, and then they attempt to pay this terrorist organization, my opinion, um, this terrorist group in Bitcoin to give them a key to unlock it. So in Florida, we do not allow government agencies to do that, and we have a lot of other requirements in there, but that's the basis, that's the foundation. So we're not going to allow taxpayer dollars to go to these terrorist organizations or these terrorist organizations or nation sponsored organizations. It's not going to happen.
Man, I've heard of that before, but I never heard of it on like government agencies or anything like that. I've only ever heard of it like on, private businesses, the usually well-to-do off private businesses, and they've got their own, counter hackers and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, no, listen, I've heard it more, now that I'm where I'm at. Actually, I've heard it more happening to government agencies than I have to private sector companies. It's
wow.
probably because a private company can you know conceal it better, and they can handle it within. And
Yeah.
but no, these some of the a lot of government agencies we're getting breached. So we're hoping that and we built a council. They're putting things together. They're doing good stuff. We got a great CIO in Florida. We've got a great CISO. So we're trying to do a lot of good things to make sure that there's training, they have resources, and they just do the right thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's been my biggest focus, is to try to make sure that the state, um, we can't tell anybody else, or we can't make rules or laws, or if we have issues ourselves.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that the government um, is protecting the taxpayers' interests and taxpayers of Florida.
Yeah.
So
Well, what's cool is, you a lot of people can brag about, well, I got this amount of money for us, or I saved this amount of money, in my term, but yours is could be potentially an unheard of amount. Like you don't know what you've just prevented just by stopping people from targeting Florida or
Yep.
targeting that area because they know they're not gonna get paid out now.
Yeah,
So
putting all this together just wasn't from like it wasn't like me just sitting there. There's a team of people. Again, we have a council,
yeah,
we have staff and folks, and then the private sector industry, all the cloud service, everybody kind of weighed in and was like, hey, these are the best ways and this is what we can do. And,
yeah,
we wanted to make sure that we had a consistent standard. We meet same standards as, as other states and other agencies. We consulted the federal government, to see what like DHS and CISA and all those organizations, what they recommend. And we just kind of came up with what, we thought,
yeah,
would be a good foundation. And it's all like sometimes when you create laws or you create, legislation or you put rules in or you try to minimize the unintended consequences because there's always going to be like second, third order effects. And the other thing that I've learned from, being in the military is that, yeah, you have a course of action, but then you have to have an alternate course of action and then an alternate. And then you have to really think about like your goal, what your goal is, what
yeah,
you're trying to fix or what you're trying to achieve. And then making sure that, other things don't, get terribly affected by it in a negative way. Because then you got to go back and try to clean it up, um, and you're just trying not to cause too much damage and too much financial burden on the taxpayers, and making sure that you're doing the right thing. So
yeah.
yeah,
No, that's cool. That's huge.
yeah,
I like
it's
that.
kind of, but it's not. I have other friends in the legislature that are doing like a lot of like national level like
Yeah,
Fox News bills and stuff like that, and I'm just kind of working
yeah.
on my little thing. But
But
I like it. It's important.
yeah, well, the way that and we kind of touched on this when it came to you and I had a side conversation when we first met about catalytic converters
Yeah,
and how that's a big
crazy.
issue. I said the problem is nobody is tackling this issue from your side of the house, basically. I said because as a cop, our hands are tied. Like we don't have the tools we need to even start combating this issue. And if people are hearing this for the first time about catalytic converters, like it is a national epidemic. It's huge. It's a $1 billion industry. People stealing these things.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you know finding ways that we require, just like if you sell something to a pawn shop, right? That pawn dealer, to my knowledge, has to register it. There's got to be some mechanisms that we can put in place to make
Now
sure that it's
there
not.
is there and that's kind of the issue is there already is some mechanism, at least in Texas. Like if I were going to sell a catalytic converter to a legitimate recycler, like a state certified recycler, there are standards they have to do. They have to take your license, like get a picture of your ID. They have to get a picture of you. They got a picture of your car and your license plate. All of that, which is great. And some bad guys fall under that, and we catch them that way because they didn't know any better. But the majority of these guys are selling black market. They're selling to um, a person that provides the equipment. So I'll give you an example. We had a guy lives in this house, claiming his yard, his personal yard, is a scrap yard. Like he had this little shell business for it, as a scrap yard, a junkyard type thing. And what he was doing is he had a room in his house that had close to 100 battery chargers, sawzall blades, sawzaws. Like it was like going into a Depot rental facility. And he was providing the equipment to these cutters that would go out and steal your catalytic converters. And he was telling them which ones to look for, the types of cars and all that stuff. They bring them back to him. He'd give them a little bit of cash. So he's feeding. Most of them have some sort of drug addiction. He's feeding their addiction. He's buying these catalytic converters at bare minimum, way undervalued. And then him as a scrapyard, he's going and selling them to a licensed facility, completely legit. And
because he's bringing them in bulk.
he's bringing them in bulk. There's
no different.
yeah. So there's that loophole. That's one loophole that we've got. So one fix for me would be like, if you're going to sell catalytic converters, you need to provide a copy of the VIN, the title, something where I need to see the chain of custody of this thing. If you just found it in the streets or whatever, you don't get to sell it. You don't get to recycle it. Sorry. I need proof.
It is a billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, I need proof of the workflow of where this came from, what vehicle it came off of, whatever. And then the other part is, let's say I pull over a vehicle at 2:30 in the morning, which is a prime time for them to go out and steal these things. It's a Honda Civic, and it's got 15 catalytic converters in the back seat, a bag that I can clearly see a Sawzall with a bunch of Sawzall blades. And the guy that I get pulled over has a history of theft and drugs and whatever. All of the signs are there, right? It's clear that this guy is out cutting cats off of people's cars at night. I can't do shit. I can't do anything. The best I can do is confiscate the catalytic converters and put it as a suspect case for a possible burglary or theft, and then hope somebody files a case in that area that I caught this guy, and the catalytic converters match up to a vehicle somehow. But catalytic converters don't have VIN numbers on them. Oftentimes, the only way we can match them up is if somebody caught it on camera, or the cut itself from the pipes matches the car. But a lot of times they'll do a double cut. So they'll cut it off and then they'll cut the pipes again. So then if I go to try to match it up, it won't match. So we don't have the tools that we need to stop these guys. And another fix, since you're a guy that can do these things, let's say I pull that car over. If you have loose cat, we call them loose cats. If you have loose cats in your car, meaning they're not in a box, like they're going to be installed, like properly installed, like you would order one from a company aftermarket. If it's just a loose cat and you've got no proof of ownership, no title, no nothing, that should be assumed it's stolen. Just like if I were to catch you with credit cards on your person that don't belong to you, that's an assumed felony. I can arrest you right then and there. We get you booked and all that stuff. Meanwhile, I go back, I call the victims on these cards. Hey, did you get a credit card stolen? Yes, I did. Okay, cool. We're going to finish filing this case. That way the person can't get away. You know, we can still follow through. Now, if it turns out they're like, no, I let that guy use my credit card, and the other person also says, yeah, I let that guy use my credit card, like, that doesn't happen. But let's say that weird scenario, that does happen. Okay, sir, we take him, get him out of the jail. We take him back to where he was at. But it's a fair assumption that that person didn't have permission to use those cards. So it's the same with the catalytic converters. If I catch you, let's say, with two or more, and they're cut loose, you know, like, it's pretty obvious you're out taking them. Now, if you work for a garage, a muffler shop, whatever it is, that makes sense. Okay, I get that. But 2:30 in the morning, you got 15 catalytic converters in the back of your Honda Civic. Like,
yeah, that's a little bit more.
Yeah. And we would have never been aware of this issue had the market not gone up so high for the precious metals, the regulated metals that are inside of catalytic converters.
So in Texas, did you guys, how long has that law been in effect where they have to register and provide license, all that stuff?
That's not it's not the oldest. It's fairly new, but it didn't do enough. They easily get around it now. They you know, it's just like any other crime. Bad guys figure out the loopholes and then they expose those and start taking advantage of those.
It's a huge problem. I've talked to our state attorney about it, and it is a huge problem. You're billions and billions of dollars of theft. And these are like organized crime. Some of them are like very sophisticated.
It's mostly organized crime. Yeah, in my experience. And I know you don't like to put mandates and regulations on private companies, but in this case, that may be one of the fixes because they're the ones driving the black market. They are purchasing from the people out there, and that's another problem. A lot of times it's muffler shops or scrap yards. They're not state licensed recycling facilities. They're buying these things, $50 a pop from these guys going out cutting, and then they turn around and wholesale it and make a ton of money off it. They're driving the market illegally, at
Yeah, I
least in
don't know.
Texas.
Yeah, I don't know how, I don't know in Florida how the scrap yards or how they're registered or what type of licensing that they'd have to get. That'd be interesting to find out,
Yeah,
though.
but to my point, the point that I was trying to make is it takes a guy like you to do a small project in your state, and then you get the national guys to go, oh shit, look what he did, he fixed it,
Yeah,
and we can
yeah.
take that and we can run it everywhere. So
Yeah, no, and that does happen a lot. We look at stuff that Texas does. I've had Texas folks contact me about some of the cyber things, and so it's we work together. We have different associations that
yeah,
we communicate with and to see um, what's working for them, what's not working.
yep,
So yeah, no, absolutely,
yeah, it's
no, yeah,
and what we found is some of our organized busts that we've done here, they're transporting their stuff to Florida. We
yeah.
haven't figured out why, what the draw is to Florida in particular. We haven't figured out yet. But Florida, Detroit, I get that. I understand why they'd go to Detroit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cartel stuff. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, no, it's fentanyl is a big problem too.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah.
Fentanyl's been,
It's like the number one killer of young people right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
I have told some of the principals and different. I'm like, you guys, in Florida we allow the schools to carry Narcan because,
yeah,
like, you just never know. And in some cases, the kids don't even know that it's drugs.
yeah,
They see these shiny pieces of candy and they think that that's, you know, so it's in the day and age that we're in right now, there's so many different things, and a lot of the fentanyl is coming through our borders, and
yep,
uh, so it's
yep,
it's a mess. So we're trying to figure out ways to, but it's just so rampant. It's really
yeah,
really hard to just kind of get a control over.
yeah.
Uh, so we have to figure out that in Florida, we've upped the penalty. The problem is, so we've actually upped the penalty if it can be proven that fentanyl was the death of somebody. You can be charged with murder, uh,
Oh,
with
okay.
death. Yeah, and be charged to your. But
Make the
but
dealers
no,
think twice.
yeah. But the
Yeah,
problem is that most of the folks that overdose, it's laced with something, um, and the medical examiners don't want to say it was definitely this, right? It was
yeah,
definitely fentanyl,
yeah.
um, because they
Because it could
can't
be any of the agents in that.
correct.
Yeah,
And so, trying to figure out ways um, to kind of make sure that, I mean, because it's rampant, and I'll tell you right now, it's I have constituents that have been affected, killed, over
yeah,
whatever you want to call it, on this stuff, and it is just not.
yeah. I had a truck. We were dealing with a stolen vehicle. Um, we get the guys rounded up. I peek in the car and I see pills everywhere. I mean, bags and bags and bags of pills. Honestly, it's probably one of the largest dope busts I've ever had. And I'm not a dope cop. So for me, I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of pills. And I called the narc unit out there. And I didn't go in it just because it's not my field of expertise. And I don't want to ruin whatever it is that they do. So I was looking at it from that point. I wasn't looking at it from a safety aspect, but as they show up and they go to peek in there and they're like, they round all of us officers up and they're like, "You guys good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I feel good." Like nobody feels this. They don't feel these symptoms or anything like that. I'm like, "No, dude, we didn't go in the truck." He's like, "Okay, nobody went in the truck. You didn't touch any dope that they had in their pockets or anything like that, right?" It's like, "No, no, we're good." Why? What? And he's like, "Dude, fentanyl is bad. Like we're not even gonna go in this truck until they have masks and PPE and all this stuff. just to deal with pills. That's how nervous my narc unit was of it.
That's
So,
crazy. That's
yeah,
that's
that tells you. I mean, because they get that training. All cops kind of get it, but that's their specialty, and they've seen firsthand how bad it is. So I mean, they were really checking us out, making sure we were okay. And these are guys I've hung with and hang out and do bullshit with and all that. But when it was game time and it was the real deal and the job, and they were looking out for us, and that's when I realized how potent and dangerous that shit can be. So ever since then, we've always carried Narcan in our vehicle. I work in a lot of undercover cars, so we have it in the glove box. You know, a couple of the nose shooter things, and
yeah.
it's nerve wracking as a cop, man, because you never know when you're gonna run across it. I deal with people that steal shit, so it's a high probability I'll run across it. I guess I just never really thought about it because I don't deal with dope.
No, that's and so that is nerve. If it's a pill and you can't even go near it and touch
Right?
it or whatever, then you
Yeah,
know it's bad. Then you
yeah.
know
And
it's
these bags were like sandwich bags, not even the Ziploc kind, just the old school ones that you just kind of
like
roll over the
fold up
top.
or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And so we had these bags and bags, and they were concerned that it would have gotten airborne from rubbing together and just floofing out the top. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I never even thought of that. Yeah, you
then
breathe it right
you
in.
touch it, you get in your skin.
Yeah. In your
Uh,
lungs, you're done. Yeah, that's scary stuff, man.
is
Okay.
they lace it with a ton of different types of
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah, I heard there's even a newer type of fentanyl out there. I don't think it's called fentanyl, but it's made from that same tree, and it's even more potent. I don't understand why they need it. I don't know what it does. I don't understand enough about drugs because I just don't. That's not my realm of expertise as a cop. I don't go down that path very much. So, but I don't know what fentanyl would do to enhance your high. I guess I don't know.
I have no. It's a
Addiction, maybe.
painkiller. I mean, it used to be like legal.
Yeah,
Well, this I think it's still like to a level. I don't know. Like in some certain cases,
yeah,
synthetic, like an extreme synthetic heroin type of,
yeah, yeah.
like
Fuck.
you're dying, you're on your deathbed.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know.
no,
Well, okay, sir. So now, yeah, how much longer do you have on your current? Is this your first term you're on?
second. I just started my second term.
You just started the second. Okay,
Yeah.
so, so you still got 4 years left,
Yep.
ish. Okay.
No, I got
Yeah.
yeah. Well, more than 4 years. Like probably about six total. Because I still got
Okay.
to do my second term, so it's 2 years, and then I have 2 years, and then 2 years.
Okay. That
Yep.
so it's 2 years. I'm sorry. I thought it was two
Yeah,
terms.
you got four 2 year terms.
Oh, okay. 4 2-year terms. Okay. Dang, dude, that's legit. And you didn't have any competition this year, so
Yeah,
uh, that
yeah.
means you got to go even harder.
Yeah, and listen, just I'm going to continue doing the work. Got to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You get an opponent, you get an opponent, right? It's part of the process.
Yeah.
So
I Florida's
running is not
typically.
easy. So anybody who's ever put their hat, and I have a lot of respect for them, put their hat in just attempting it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. Everything is out there. I mean, my next time around, this will be out there. Like it's just everything is out there. So you
Yeah.
just, it is what it is. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. That's one of my concerns cuz I want to be a chief somewhere. I love law enforcement and I like helping and doing all that stuff. I would love to do it from the top to try to form a law enforcement agency in how I've learned over my career because it's not that I think I'm the best out there by any means, but I just want to see what I can do to see if I can help improve law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I don't hold my ideas to myself. I never have. I put them all out there on here. So I hope all agencies can listen to what I say and go, you know what, that's a good idea. We'll try that one. Just take a tool for the tool belt. But I'd love to give it a good go, see how it works out. Maybe I can keep improving law enforcement. But like you said, people will go back and look at what I've done on here.
Yeah.
And I am fully aware of that. So you're either going to love me or going to hate me because I'm not going to change who I am. I think who I am is working for me. So,
Yeah.
but it could screw me out of a good spot. But I think you'll be
I mean,
fine.
you haven't said anything bad so far on this episode, so
Yeah, I know.
you're all
Yeah,
right so far.
I
Yeah.
try to, like I said, it's definitely not PC by any means. We swear, we drink, although today we're drinking coffee.
You
So,
know what though? I think people want to be, that I also think people want somebody normal.
yeah,
I when I talk to folks, I don't like.
yeah. Or at least be yourself. Like it's fine if you don't
Yes.
drink. If you're a person that doesn't drink, that's fine, and be you. But when you do, and
Yeah.
you pretend you don't, or you try to put on this
The
facade that you're,
fakeness is yeah.
yeah,
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 people are over the whole fake stuff. So,
yep.
but
I one of my biggest frustrations with politicians is just you'll ask them a simple question and you get this
never answer.
big roundabout vague answer, and I'm just like, he asked you a yes or no question, not, you know, can you fix the catalytic converter things? Well, first, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Joe, that's a great question. I appreciate you doing that. I like the work. They don't.
You're already getting it, man. You
I
got it.
I
You got
hate it. I hate that shit.
yeah.
Just like shut up and answer the question. That's what people want. They don't want this long drawn out thing and then, oh, I'm sorry, we ran out of time and you touched on the word. You said the word catalytic converter. That was it. Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. I don't know how you deal with that, buddy. But in your campaign stuff, okay, so this is a question that I'm just personal curiosity. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you do have to run against somebody. Like, who comes up to you and they're like, I'm going to be your campaign person. Like, and this is how, I don't even know how you get funding for that.
No, we have campaign consultants. We have to fundraise, right? So we have to host fundraisers and we have to do all that stuff and call people for support and it's
So it's just through networking. Like, you find somebody that's into that stuff and you're like, I trust this guy or girl.
yeah. I mean, they're it's a job for them. It's a profession. It's a hiring a consultant. You're
Oh,
hiring
okay. So
somebody. Oh
you're
yeah.
actually paying somebody.
There's
Oh,
political consultants that
I didn't
um,
even know that.
yeah. So
Tells you how
like
clueless I am on politics.
well, I'll tell you like so mine. Um, he is extremely principled, and so you go out and you say, hey, I'm gonna hire you as a consultant. He'll interview you to make sure that you're not like he wants to make sure that you have the same foundational principles as he does because he doesn't
That's
want
good.
to represent somebody that and then you have some of them that are just like we don't care, we're just in it for the money, um, and so mine is not in it for the money because he does a lot of stuff, just to I don't know, I'd say free, but he's done a lot of stuff for free just to
Yeah.
get good people elected.
Yeah. Pro bono.
So yeah, pro bono would be
I got you. Yeah.
yeah, but no, it's and he'll spend hours and hours. I mean, he's up at the office at 5 a.m. and he's leaving at midnight or 11 o'clock, and then doing it all over again during election season. So I got a pretty good one that's dedicated to same beliefs and principles and
Yeah.
so no,
Have you got
but
to,
I've actually had he's actually interviewed people that wanted to hire him, and he's like, can't do it. Sorry, we don't
don't
see
fit
eye to eye
his,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
see eye to eye. He is believes in conservative principles, and he's believes in limited government and all that type of stuff. So you can't he just won't work for people that are just kind of too far outside of his beliefs. So I
I,
like that about him. So
yeah.
and that's hard to find in this game, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but yeah,
Did you, in your time, have you got to meet, DeSantis?
I have.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
and then he actually spent a lot of time down in Southwest Florida because we got hit with a hurricane, um,
Okay.
and so I got to probably get to know him a little bit better than I did before since the hurricane hit because I think he was down here every other day. It seemed like so helping us
Yeah.
out. making sure some of the red tape has been cut.
Yeah.
Some of the things that, it's crazy when you get hit by a storm like that, and then all the things that happen, the details behind it, the contracts with the cities and the state emergency management and the debris pickup and all these little things that kind of go into place. We have barrier islands here. And so we have Pine Island and Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach, who all three were just completely destroyed. I think Fort Myers Beach was probably the absolute worst that got hit. And I just couldn't imagine some of the folks that lived out there. They just lost everything.
Yeah.
And so we had, and then Sanibel is an affluent community. They have a lot of money, but I mean, they got destroyed too. I mean, they took their bridge went out, so they needed a lot of support and help. And they got good folks over there too. And then Pine Island. So Pine Island is these people. Man, Pine Islanders are resilient. They're tough. They're your fishermen. They're your marine contractors. They're very humble people. They're good people, and they're right outside of my district. But only way to get through to Pine Island is through my district, unless you go by boat. And so their causeway or their bridge went out. Part of their causeway went out, and so I get a call a couple of days after the storm hit from a friend of mine out there. I coach Pop Warner football.
Okay.
So I coach with some of these guys that live on the island, and I grew up with them. So they call me up and they're like, "Hey, we need to build a bridge. We need, we can do it." So, like I said, they're marine contractors. They're very capable of doing things themselves, and so they cleared their own debris. They did all of this, and they were fighting with the county. County is just not wanting to help them for whatever reason, and no good reason in my opinion. But and so we went out there, myself and our Congressman Donalds. We went out to Pine Island, saw all the issues. We came back and I saw the governor and I told him about it. I said, "Listen, they're going to build a bridge with or without us." I said, "We just need Florida Department of Transportation's help." And he's like, "All right." That's it.
Yeah, that was
And
it. Done.
literally, I'll tell you, within that late afternoon, I get a call and they're like, "Hey, Department of Transportation's out here, like looking for spots where they could put their vehicles and looking at and talking to some of the pilot." They're like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so I get a call from Florida Department of Transportation. They're like, "Hey, just FYI, we think we could build it in, 3 to 5 days." And
Damn.
so I was like, "All right."
Make it
And
happen.
so they had that bridge built in 3 days.
Wow.
100+ trucks of gravel come in. They worked around the clock. It was just, we had the issue. I saw the governor and told him,
Yeah.
we need help with this. And there was just zero hesitation. He was like, boom. And
So
it
all you
was,
have to do is just like schedule an appointment and like for a
if,
major issue like that, I'm assuming. Like,
well,
how does
he
that
was
work?
coming down a lot
Yeah.
to help us out, make sure that everything was good. He was standing up state programs that help, especially some of the small businesses and the people and all that stuff. So he was down here a lot, and I caught him when he was down here, and I told him what was going on, and he, just so fast.
Yeah.
Um, we had one of our supermarkets, Publix, that was trying to open their doors and was having some local government issues trying to do that. They wanted to just give the food away, um, and
Oh yeah.
so we ended up just letting the governor's team know, and her, Dane Eagle, who's my predecessor and who just left as the Secretary of Economic Opportunities, picked up the phone, contacted the very top of Publix, and that's our grocery store chain here, and they were like, "This is what we're doing. All right, let's do it." Open the
Yeah.
doors. National Guard helped support with security, making sure that nobody was going to go in and loot and all that stuff. Um, and then people who did not have power, water, food, anything, Publix opened their doors and they let them just like, hey, we're some of this stuff's is perishable, right? So you just
Yeah.
if it's good, take it, like, and so it's. I'll tell you right now, the responded. Community and nonprofits responded way faster and way more efficient than some of our governments did, and so it went really well. I think from that aspect, with the state's involvement, like again, we had hiccups, county issues, but I think outside of that, um, you know, the governor was like on point, helping us out down here. So
Yeah.
can't complain at
That's
all about it.
awesome.
Yeah,
So he's a personable guy, is what it sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah.
He just gets it done. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no like again, the least amount of
That's
words.
that's
He's
the
a very
military. That's the military in
yeah,
baby.
he's a military,
Yeah.
JAG officer. So but he's
Yeah.
like, least amount of words, just getting it, just got it done for us. So that
That's
was good.
cool.
Yeah,
I've
we appreciate it.
despite what the media and everything, like I just look at, his history. I'm like, he's a military guy and he's going and he seems to run things like I'm used to seeing in the military. Like, I don't have time for bullshit. Like, this needs to be done. Let's get this done. This isn't a priority. We don't need to deal with this right now. It's
Yeah,
like it's not that hard. You don't got to overcomplicate things when stuff. It's just a hierarchy of priority, and knowing who to get what done. Like you said, you surround yourself with the experts, and that's the best way to do it.
yeah,
Because
no, it was, yeah. I think I mean it just worked out really well for us. So
yeah,
he,
that's awesome.
and he had because the issues that we did have with the county. He knew, and he, I mean, they were down here every other day. I was getting phone
Yeah,
calls. Hey, the governor's in the area. So constantly like letting us know, like, hey, let us know if you need anything. Let us know if you need anything. I mean, it was just constant from his office, which
yeah,
is extremely appreciative because sometimes you're not thinking to ask, or you're not thinking to, and you can
yep,
bounce issues off of his team, and they would help us come up with a solution. So
yeah. I wish governors and representatives and stuff like that would do that more often with their local police agencies,
yeah.
because the stuff we could tell them and help them with is just so abundant. But I've never ever had a representative, a city councilman, any of that come out and want to talk and figure out from a cop's perspective in an area, like what are you seeing? What are the things that you think could be done to help here? Because who
That's
knows better than the ones that are saturated in that area?
Well, that's a shame because that's when I go and talk about, like, when I'm learning about like mental health issues and from communities, and I'm going to the sheriff's department, or I'm going to the police department. I'm
Yeah,
asked to say, hey, are you guys seeing this being an issue? Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Like the fentanyl, or catalytic converters.
yeah,
And you got to ask it. Like, you don't know. You,
yeah,
so you gotta, and sometimes people are not going to just volunteer it. So you gotta just ask, like, what are the biggest issues that you're seeing?
yeah,
And you know, mental health is a thing. Talking to some of the sheriff's deputies, and they're like, oh man, 8 out of 10 people that we arrest have some sort of mental health issue,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
so this is a problem,
yeah.
you know? Uh,
And on the law enforcement side, you
Oh
know,
yeah, oh yeah.
it's like
Well, yeah. This
right
last year, I
now,
ran a bill here in Florida that allows for first responders and corrections officers, if they had if they had an incident, they were involved in a shooting or something with a child, or that could cause post traumatic stress,
yeah,
they can seek workman's comp 1 year after the diagnosis. So before it was 1 year after the incident.
Yeah.
We changed it to incident or diagnosis. So because a lot of times being in the military, I know that stuff doesn't come till later on in life.
Yeah.
You just have no clue. It could be a couple of years. It could be, an officer gets involved in a shooting, and then 2 years later, they have a family, they have little ones, and then they start to have issues because maybe there was a child involved in a case that they're working, and now they have to, go seek help.
Yep.
We want to make sure that they do, right? We
Yeah.
want to make sure that you go seek help. We want to make sure, and we don't want it to be a ding on you. We want it to be, we want it to be something that you can go do, and then get back to work, all right? After you're kind of, you get the help that you need.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so we passed that the last year.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I bet you get a lot of other states following that example.
Yeah, I hope
Which
so. I think it's something that it's just a thing that we have to do. We have to recognize that.
yeah.
In our Florida Police Chiefs Association, and then the PBA and
Yep.
um, and all the organizations were kind of helping me because I don't know all. I know from the military side, which is
Yeah.
way different, right? But they're kind of helping me with some of the information,
Yeah.
and because I have to go to them to ask them, right? They know it, I
Yeah.
don't. So
Yep.
that's part of the partnership that you have
Yeah,
to have.
absolutely. Man, I couldn't, how awesome it would be if I showed up to roll call and, I'm getting ready to go punch 10-8 to go on patrol or whatever it is. And for roll call that day, I've got, a state legislator or the governor or whoever. And their only job that they're trying to do there that day is just let you talk to them and gain perspective. Okay, what do you see? What do you think could help fix the community here? Like, what are your priorities? And you just, it may be 20 officers, and it's going to take a while to get through all those officers, but holy shit, the perspective you're going to get about that area that you're not going to get from anyone else. You're not going to get it from the public because the public doesn't even see. The cops see the bad
Yeah.
call after call after call after call, where a citizen only sees that one bad call that happened in their area, maybe, even if they weren't a part of it, maybe. So it's
Well,
just a unique
so
perspective.
no, and that's a good point because it's just beyond the crime element. Or so I had a resource officer. I was chatting with him, and I said, "What are the biggest things that you're having, like you see issues with?" And he's like, "There's just not enough to do." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, he goes, my city is over 200,000 people. We're like the sixth largest city, sixth or seventh largest city in the state of Florida, population wise. Our we used to be more retirement. Now the average age has dropped significantly. We have a
Okay.
lot of families in it now, but we don't have a boys and girls club. We don't have any of these things
Yeah.
that kids do. And he's like, there's not enough things for kids to do, right? They're just kids, like they get out of school, they go home, there's nothing else to do. They can cause trouble, or they do it like there's just not enough stuff to keep the kids in the community occupied. And I said, man, I never had anybody come and say, hey, just we need more kid things to do, because it's usually not so I started to like, that's what kind of, I was like, I'm gonna go coach my kids Pop Warner team this year, and this was last season. And so I was just, I mean, we had over 100 kids that we could not take playing Pop, like on one field. We had 100 kids that couldn't play Pop Warner football because we didn't have enough space. It filled up within an hour of registration. So like, well, this is a problem. Like, we got to make sure that kids have an outlet to do other things. I know sports kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Sports kept me out of trouble. Fishing and doing all that stuff that kept me out of trouble. So we got to have these things,
Yeah.
for
Y'all got
kids.
some
We
good
can't.
bass fishing out there.
Yeah, we do. You got to give these kids things to do, and during the
Yeah.
summer, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of programs. And so I was like, because our local police department, Cape Coral Police Department, they have like programs where officers take kids that maybe are in a home where mom's working a couple jobs, or so they take kids and they help them
Yeah.
out.
High risk kids. Yeah. That's what we
Yeah, the
call
high risk
them. Yeah.
kids. They get them involved in sports, and they help pay for they scholarship them into you know different leagues and stuff like that. So which is great, but and he saw it and he's like, we just don't have enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like,
That makes
I
sense.
mean, and a lot of that is mostly on the local level, not really the state can
Yeah.
step in on that.
Yeah.
But it's just good to know that we're growing in that way, and we need to figure out ways to. And maybe there is something, maybe there's something that the state can help with a grant or
Yeah.
whatever that we can put together to make sure that some of these communities have
Yep. We
enough
do
funds to do it, resources to grow.
we do a judo and a boxing league. That's a big thing that our department puts on. Um, we call it the athletic league type thing, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's typically high risk kids that come do it, but not always. It's open to all the anyone from the city, but yeah, it's pretty substantial. To the point where we like have to hire people to help us
yeah.
manage and do it all like outside of the agency and whatnot. So yeah, it's pretty big, but I think we stole that from Boston. I think Boston's the one that originated it uh, for troubled teens and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's huge. So, well, brother, is there anything we haven't hit that maybe you want to bring light to?
No, man, I appreciate your time. Looking forward to actually hearing it. And
Yeah, yeah, it'll be good. Let's
there's,
say goodbye to your partner there. Hey, buddy,
there's
see ya.
Tim. There's Tim. Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll,
Yeah,
he'll
man.
he'll love that. He'll love
I
that
know.
you single him out, just like when you single him out at the Crime Center conference.
He had it coming. He left us hanging.
He
So,
did.
uh,
He's a good sport.
he's a good dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
his
I had so much fun at this We did this conference for real time crime centers, and I met. This is how I met him and Tim, and I met quite a few people over there. And we just hit it off. Like our personalities meshed well, and we just end up hanging out pretty much every night that we were there. And
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a good time, man. I had a
Yeah,
lot of
it's
fun.
great organization. It was good conference too. Thought it was
Yeah,
had
a lot
all
of good
the
info.
or I, as a vendor, it had all the right folks at it for us to be able to that understood the technology, that understands technology, but also we go to some of the conferences and sometimes the folks at like the high level they don't necessarily know too much detail about the technology behind it. Yeah, they
Yeah,
may be the signatory or the person that signs off on it, but they got to get just like anybody else. You got to get the information from your analyst. You got to get the information from your managers,
yep,
saying, "Hey, what do we need? What works? What doesn't?" And you trust those folks to help you make the decision if whether a solution is right for you. I mean,
yeah,
we go into
absolutely.
agencies sometimes, and it's crazy. They'll have so many different platforms or programs, and nothing really talks, or they don't use it a whole lot. And we're just like, why are you guys? And they're like, oh, well, this person bought this when they were here, and this person. Now you got a whole ton of stuff that you
Yeah,
just don't know, and then you don't have anybody that knows how to use it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Yep, you're absolutely right.
yeah,
It drives me crazy sometimes, and you're
so
like,
you experience it.
yeah, I'm just like, oh my god. And I'm coming from a department that we do have multiple platforms. We have a lot because we don't like to get ourselves singled into one contract necessarily, and we're trying to figure out which one works best
Yeah,
for us. And so here we are. People are like, "Man, you're flipping back and forth to so many different platforms. Isn't that confusing?" Well, yes and no, but now we have a system down where we know like if this happens, if a car chase happens, this platform works best for us while we're trying to get camera to camera to camera on keeping up with a pursuit
yeah,
versus like if we're investigating a crime that's already occurred and we need to go back and look through footage, this platform works better. And I think it's an expensive way, but I think it's the best way to get experience with all of the different platforms to figure out, like I said, what works best for you. So,
Well, and you have like these some of the associations that are able to, you can talk to some people from other agencies that that have certain solutions. Hey, what works? How do you use it?
yeah,
Um, and they're the best ones to tell you like
yep,
we don't use it, we do use it. It's like we see we still we like Analyst Notebooks, a product that Tim and I know fairly well, and it's like an amazing utility if you know how to use it. You got to know, and there are companies out there that help you use them. Um, that are good companies, but it's just you got to know how to use it.
yeah,
And that's like
yep,
the biggest thing is we see is a lot of agencies will have platforms and programs and software and whatever. They just don't know how to use it.
yeah.
Um,
There's no
but,
trainer program. There's no nothing like, here's your software, go to town. You know.
or let's just be honest. Sometimes the turnover is a lot in
Mm-hmm.
certain parts, maybe more so on civilian staff,
Yeah,
or they keep shuffling around. I know we have agencies that will have they'll you know they'll have analysts come from communications, or they'll move them around to different parts of the agency. It's not consistent,
yeah,
um, so they don't know how to use the program.
yeah,
They got to
yep,
learn, and
yep.
there's a learning curve involved in that. So
That's why I like the association, man. We're figuring out those best practices and getting people linked up and all that stuff, and it's serving a higher purpose, to get communities, flowing safer
yeah,
and more intelligence based, which is where policing's heading. So, for me, looking at
yeah.
the policing side, I think it's really cool.
Well, and you have so much data out there, and there's so much to do, and there's so many crimes happening, and there's
Yeah,
like detailed things that go on, right? It's how do you become more efficient? How do you become, streamlined? That's why we came up with Iris, because it's just more efficient. But how do you do that with all your programs? How do you be, you know,
yes, yep.
that's always and so we go to IACA, which is it's an analyst conference. Actually, it's in Texas next year, this coming year.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, I think it's in Dallas or your area.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Um, but they always have like a lot of programs and a lot of folks. I mean, they have 1,000 people normally. I think at this thing, I think 1,000. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but they have a lot of people there. And then a lot of vendors that are showing different stuff and trainings. I know Esri does like they block off and they do like just tons of training on their tools. So it's you got to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
That's just the way of it.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah,
You're right. Well, all right, brother. I appreciate you being on, and I wish you the best of luck.
thank you for your time, and yeah, man, let's looking forward to catching up again in person.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll
All
definitely
right,
let you know if I make it over there to Florida too. So,
yeah, man, come on down. Hey, listen, we're always open.
hell yeah. All right, bro.
All
Take
right,
it
man.
easy.
All right, bye.